Funding for Overheard with Evan Smith comes from Hilco Partners, a Texas government affairs consultancy, Claire and Carl Stewart, Christine and Philip Dial, Eller Group, specializing in crisis management, litigation, and public affairs communication, ellergroup.com, Diane Land and Steve Adler, and Carrie and Chris Odo.
I'm Evan Smith. She's a James Beard Award-winning food writer for The New York Times, The Guardian, Bon Appetit, and more. Her new cookbook, her sixth, is Linger, Salads, Sweets, and Stories to Savor. She's Hetty Lui McKinnon. This is Overheard.
A platform and a voice is a powerful thing.
You've really turned the conversation around about what leadership should be about.
Are we blowing this? Are we doing the thing we shouldn't be doing by giving in to the attention junkie? As an industry, we have an obligation to hold ourselves to the same standards that we hold everybody else to. This is Overheard.
Hetty Lui McKinnon, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's my first time in Austin.
Is that right? Well, we welcome you back anytime you want. And congratulations on this amazing cookbook. So this is the sixth. As I said, I think the order goes neighborhood, family, community, to Asia with Love, Tender Heart, and now Linger.
Almost correct.
Almost correct. Did I get the orders wrong?
Well, community is first.
Community is
but
first.
It was re-released in 2019.
Right.
So often it's
technically,
listed.
community is first.
It is, yeah.
The point of this, though, is that that's in the space of about 9 years.
Yeah.
It's 10 years. It's
10 years.
It's a lot of cookbooks in a space of 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do more.
You could do well. Yeah, and I suspect you will do more. The principles behind this one seem to me to be, first and foremost, as you write yourself, the culinary life begins with salads.
It does.
Right. Explain what you mean by that, because this is obviously not exclusively a cookbook of salad recipes, a lot of salad recipes in here, but that's really the narrative through line.
Yeah. I mean, Community was my first book,
Yeah.
and that book was about my salad business. I actually had a salad business
Yes.
in Sydney where I rode around on a bike twice a week and delivered salads to locals.
Right.
And so before that, I was not in food. You know, I had this other career in PR. I just had three children under 3.5. And I just decided I don't want to go back to an office. I want to do something that keeps me rooted in my community.
Yeah.
And I just taught myself how to cook. And I'd been a vegetarian for many years already at that time. And
Right.
I decided I wanted to feed my community. So, and what I fed them was salad in a box. And so this book was really going back to those roots of sharing salads with friends.
Yeah.
At the time, they were new friends, but that spirit of community has run through all my books. Like all those titles
Right.
you've just read out, there's that spirit of sharing, of learning from one another, of coexistence.
Yeah.
And I think today, more than ever, that message is really important.
Yeah,
right?
well, in fact, that's the second principle, right? This is a book about sharing. It's a book about community. Linger, actually, before it was a cookbook, was a project where you would gather people together, right?
At a table not
At a
unlike
table.
this.
Yeah.
In my home, and I had every month for a 12-month period, I had friends come over and I just served them salads. And so chronologically in this book is the salad gatherings that I had.
Right.
And through that, what I really wanted to do was, the year was 2023. I was really feeling already like there's this disconnection. I want to tap into what I was missing in food. Like sometimes like just sitting at home developing recipes, it's kind of lonely. And writing a book is a very lonely process until you get it out into the world and then you fear, are people going to like it? But there's a wave of emotions. But in writing this book, I knew immediately what people thought of the food. I knew the favorites. And there was just this incredible bond. So over every recipe in here, I can remember a moment I shared with a friend in my home. And so this book is more than just recipes. It's an entire year of my life.
Well, it's stories. Again, as it says, it is stories.
Yeah.
And it's as much your story as it is the stories of the things that we're going to cook as a result of your recipes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other through line here, as I think about the principles behind this, and again, it goes back through all 6 cookbooks, is vegetables.
Yes.
Right? You have been a vegetarian since age 19?
Yes,
Is that right?
that's
I've been a
correct.
vegetarian since age 17.
Okay, close.
I thought we should fist bump over that,
Yes.
actually. Right, there you go, yes. I understand the frame of mind that you're in when you think about this stuff. And
Yeah.
I think you're extraordinarily creative in the way you approach this stuff. I've been saying for years the only problem with being a vegetarian is the food.
Right.
Right?
Really?
But actually,
we need to talk more about
we should
that.
talk more about that. Right. But you have really approached the task of putting these recipes before us in a way that makes you forget almost
Yeah.
that you're a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Right?
It doesn't say vegetarian on that cover.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. There's not. I haven't had a book that has vegetarian on the cover.
Right.
I kind of fell into food,
Yeah.
so I didn't understand all these things about categorizing books and where they go on the shelf. But
Right.
I remember with my first book, I said to my publisher, I don't want it to be in the vegetarian section,
Right.
because I want this book to be, these recipes to be mainstream.
Well,
And
the
that's-
vast majority of people, if you do that, will turn away.
Yeah.
Right? They'll be friendly, but they'll
Yeah.
turn away in a friendly way.
Yeah, because I think the term vegetarian or vegan or plant-based, often those terms mean something that you're missing out on.
Yeah.
It's what's less. It's what's not there. Whereas I feel like my recipes are all about more. More
Right.
flavor, more texture, more intriguing flavor combinations. It's
Yeah.
more. And I think that's what vegetarian food should be. It's more, not less.
Yeah, the obligation is on us to figure out how we can make the experience as good as it might be for somebody who isn't a
Absolutely.
vegetarian.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I also think as a vegetarian recipe developer, it does actually make my recipes different. And this is something that
Say more about that.
So for me, eating a vegetarian meal isn't a gimmick. It's not like Mondays. It's not just something I'm going to do every now and then. I'm not flexitarian.
Right.
This is me every single day, every meal of every single day. So they have to count. Those meals have to count.
Yeah.
I want flavor. I'm Cantonese. We love flavor. I want, bold flavors. I want texture. So when I'm thinking about developing a recipe, I'm thinking about all those things. Because I think that when you're not vegetarian, you don't quite understand all the requirements of having a meal that's really satisfying. So often for example, if you have a pureed soup and that's all you're eating,
Yep.
it's one note, one texture the whole time, and you're getting bored.
It's not a meal.
It's not a meal. So when I'm putting, it doesn't matter what that recipe is, it could be a salad, it could be a soup, it could be a stew, I want lots of different textures. In every bite, there's a lot going on. You're thinking about, what am I putting in my mouth? Do I like this? What elements do I like? So I think all those things all come together because I'm vegetarian. I think it's a unique point of view, and there are not that many vegetarian recipe developers out there. They might develop vegetarian food,
Right.
but they're not actually vegetarian. This is not their life.
Yeah.
So
If I think about people whose vegetarian recipes I've relied on over the years, I have to go all the way back to Molly Katzen, like in the
I
early
know Molly
days.
Cat.
Right? Yeah.
I know the book.
Right.
It was one of the first books that people
But
recommend.
that's a long time ago,
Yes.
though.
Was that
right?
from the 70s or 80s?
I mean, it's a long time ago. It is a long time. So I wanted to ask you three things on this question of vegetarianism as a through line before we get into some of the rules of the road in the book. The first
Yep.
is, I don't like tofu, generally speaking.
Okay.
Not to say I don't eat it.
We can fix that.
You like tofu.
I love tofu.
You love tofu. There are so many great recipes with tofu. It's kind of actually made me think, man, maybe I need to change my thinking on this.
Yeah. What don't you like about tofu?
How long do you have? I mean, it's a long, complicated relationship with
okay.
tofu. But
All right.
So you say tofu, yes.
Yeah,
you vote yes on
absolutely.
tofu. Yeah.
I mean, I also grew up eating tofu, so
Right.
I've never had bad tofu.
Right.
You know.
But also, your tofu is not just anybody's tofu.
I like to think so.
I'd like to think so also. All right. Meat substitutes, Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger, Fake and Bacon, all that kind of stuff. Are you for it or against it?
Personally, I don't like it.
You don't like it?
Well, I don't really want my food to taste like meat, and
Yeah.
I don't want it to have the texture of meat. And so often those products are a little too close to meat for me.
Yeah.
They taste.
If they're successful at it, that's the problem.
That's right.
Right. Okay. You ever miss meat?
Never.
Never, not one time. You've not walked past bacon cooking and thought to yourself, I almost could have that.
I
Because I
appreciate-
have sometimes. Yeah.
I appreciate the smell of it,
Yeah.
and I do think that there is such richness and depth in meat when it's cooking, but I don't want to eat it.
Yeah.
And there was one point in my life where I said to myself, when I was pregnant with my kids, I said, if I want meat and when I'm pregnant, I'm going to allow myself to do it. And I never wanted it.
Never actually happened?
Never
Amazing.
wanted it.
Okay. So I love this book for a bunch of reasons. I think the recipes are amazing, but I'm always looking for things to improve the way that I cook or think about food. And you have these interesting rules and tools here at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I want to just run through a couple things and ask you to talk about them. Okay. Salads don't always have to have leaves.
They do not.
I love that.
I might die on this rule that I'm trying to teach people.
Let's go.
Right, so like, when my type of salads are not just leaf salads. And often when you mention this, when I remember one of the first questions I was asked when I did like this small TV slot when I first arrived in New York, was the interviewer said to me, how could this be a salad? There's no lettuce or tomato or cucumbers. And so that's my big lesson, you know, in a lot of my work is salads can be many things. At its most basic, it's just a meal that is served at room temperature.
Right.
It has many elements, not complicated elements, just lots of like elements and a story that brings it together. But yeah, it doesn't have to have leaves. I mean, leaves are good. I don't have anything against salads.
You're not
with
anti-leaf.
leaves.
No.
I'm not anti-leaf,
Yes.
and I'll often have a leaf in there to brighten the whole dish.
But not a
up.
requirement.
It's not a requirement,
Okay.
and it's not the only thing that makes something a salad.
Well, you jumped ahead to something I want to ask you about that I noticed, and that was eat salads at room temperature.
Yes.
Who doesn't love a warm lentil salad?
You can do that. But the lesson I think I'm really trying to get at is a lot of people eat salad from the fridge.
It's less about them being warm than about them not being cold.
So when you know when a dish is cold,
you
can't taste the flavors. You know the temperature has muted the if you season something really well and you then put it in the fridge, the next day it's going to taste bland, and that's because the temperature has muted the seasonings.
Yeah.
So eat salads at the right temperature.
Can't argue with that. Okay. Anything can be a salad. You mentioned specifically, I remember this from getting to Asia with Love, a dumpling salad was one of the recipes in that cookbook, and you said that you got a little pushback from some people on whether that's really a salad.
It is. I mean, that one in particular is with leaves, believe it or not. But I do think that's the one recipe that I think that, you know, if anyone says that they invented it, I will argue with you, because that salad to me it encapsulates who I am as a person. You know, like I'm a Chinese salad maker, and there's not many of those in the world. I can guarantee you. Because Chinese people don't really eat salad. It's not really in our culture. I loved jellyfish salad growing up when I still ate meat, but you know, Chinese people don't really like to eat cold food. It's not good for the body. So for me to be a person that is of Chinese heritage but makes salad for a living, that dumpling salad really encapsulates who I am. Dumplings in a salad, that's kind of me. So that's my salad. But anything can be a salad. I mean, in this book, I really, really pushed the form of what a salad is. There's a mapo tofu salad.
There is.
There's a dan dan noodle salad. I mean, these are all, and what I'm trying to do there in particular is, these are dishes that are familiar to people. These are flavors that people might have tasted before. They're words and names that people might know. But then you've just twisted it around and given them a new ID for that dish. And that's what I'm always trying to do in my recipes, is make people feel comfortable, but then make them think.
So the last one in the rules section that I just want to bring out, because I thought it was so interesting, and I like to follow instructions. And so I'm like, well, where are the instructions in this cookbook? A salad can be a formula.
Yes.
This is what you said. This concept is called the anatomy of a salad. It follows a loose guideline of how I approach salad making. Vegetable plus hearty legume or grain, plus leaves, plus herbs, plus textural elements such as nuts, seeds, croutons, etc., plus dressing, plus final seasoning. Like, I thought, okay. I can do that.
You can do that. And I think that formula gives home cooks the agency to come home from work or come home and then think, ooh, what do I have in the fridge? What do I have in my pantry? And then
Right.
pull a dish together that might not be a recipe from this book or any book,
Yeah.
but it just gives you the power and the freedom to
Yeah.
just explore.
And you can subtract from that. Like if you have some aversion to nuts, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
But as just a general formula for a good salad, I thought that's pretty good. You also have in here, I did rules, now let's do tools. You have the essentials of salad making. You have essential knives. You have salad spoons, you have a shallow bowl, but to me, the real MVP in this is the personal-sized blender.
Oh, yes.
The little blender. I remember
Yes.
Ina Garten years ago with a little tiny blender, and I was like, what is that?
Yeah, and it
got
doesn't-
one, and it's just, it's invaluable.
Game-changing.
It's game-changing.
Really, and inexpensive,
Yeah.
small. Mine's a NutriBullet. I
Yeah.
think it costs $40.
Right.
Had it for years. And don't try to use one of those big blender or food processors to make your dressings because it's not going to work.
Yeah,
So-
it does the work for you.
Yeah,
And
it really
saves you
does.
time and everything else. So you mentioned that you're Cantonese. You were actually born in Australia.
In Sydney, yes.
In Sydney. Your parents are both immigrants from China to
Yeah.
Sydney. Your dad worked in kind of vegetables.
Yes.
Right. But in fact, specifically, was it
Bananas,
fruits and
yeah.
vegetables, bananas specifically.
Yeah.
Talk about, because he ends up being such an important character in the story.
Yeah, I think the, you know, when I wrote Tender Heart, it wasn't meant to be about him.
Yeah.
It was meant to be about just, you know, my fun approach to vegetables.
Right.
And then as I was working on the book, I started thinking about my dad and the role that he had on my life. And
Right.
I lost my dad when I was 15,
15,
so
right,
a long
yeah.
time ago. And I never knew him as an adult. You know, I don't know. I think about my dad in the prism of being a child.
Yeah.
So I'd never really explored the impact or whether there was an impact at all that he had on my life
Right.
or any sort of legacy. But when I started cooking and writing that book and thinking deeply about vegetables and how much I adore them and how much have always been a part of my life, he was just so... He was the main character of that story.
Right.
And so that book is really just about him and our relationship and about how he played such a huge role in me loving vegetables.
Yeah.
You mentioned he worked in the wholesale banana trade in Sydney, and our home growing up was just full of vegetables, boxes, crates. You know, like we had really access to the best and fairest of all fresh produce growing up.
Yeah. It had to influence you to some degree growing up
Yeah.
around. It's the old stories about Tiger Woods' father putting a golf club in his crib. Like, you were around this stuff at a critical part of your life as you developed as a person. You developed thinking about who you were and what you would be, and I have to believe that it had an influence on you.
Yeah, and like eating fresh food, whether that be vegetables or fruit, is
Right.
still something like I'm craving it all the time.
Right.
But it just makes me feel at home, and so that played a huge part of my life, and this I think commitment to making vegetables the center of my life and teaching other people how to love vegetables as much as I do. That's something that, you know, it's really played a huge role in my books and why I write my books and why I develop the recipes the way I do.
When did you think about cooking? Do you remember when it was that you thought, I'm interested in cooking, or, hey, I can cook?
I was always around food. Like my mum is an extraordinary cook, and probably the biggest influence on me. She's still around. We still talk about food.
Yeah.
So food was always a huge part of my life, but I didn't want a career in it. You know, that was just, it literally happened by accident.
Right.
But I always knew how to cook, but I didn't have the time
Right.
to cook as much as after I had my children, because then there was a reason to cook other than just for myself and my husband.
So the story goes Sydney, London, back to Sydney.
Yeah.
And it was back to Sydney 2011 that you began doing this salad delivery. It was called the
Arthur Street
Kitchen.
Yep.
And so you would make salads, you would take them out on your bike.
Yeah.
And you would drive them around and you know, get to meet people, but these were your customers, and that was really the catalyst for all of it.
It was. I mean, before that, it was just, hey, this is a fun idea.
Right.
I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
But when I started meeting people, hearing their stories, connecting with them, that exchange of a salad box became to mean so much more to me. And I saw how powerful food was to connect people.
Yeah.
You know, like just these salads, I was these people from all different walks of life that I would have never met They are now some lifelong friends.
Yep.
I write about them. I still talk to them often, and it's so intoxicating. It's like to come together over common ground like that, which is for us food. It's something you want to do more and more and more, and I just do it on a different scale now.
Right. You said that you had 3 kids. Very young children at the time that you started doing this.
I did.
Right, so that's 2011. So your kids are now teenagers walking up to the edge of adulthood, right? I mean, they're actual human beings. Do they eat this food?
Yes.
Do they like it? Do they question it? Do they like, why can't I have a steak?
My 2 boys, I've got a girl and then 2 boys.
Yeah.
The 2 boys love meat. They love meat. I don't really cook meat at home. Actually, funny story. I haven't cooked meat at home for probably 8-9 years.
Yeah.
Around the time I wrote my book Family, I decided I don't want to do this anymore. They're just going to eat what I eat. But then my mum is getting on in her life, and the other day I suddenly thought, they don't know this one dish, which is this basically steamed pork dish that my mum made for us maybe twice a week.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't cooked meat for a long time. And I called her and I asked her, how do you make that dish? And I went out and I made the steamed pork dish.
You did?
I didn't eat it, of course, but the kids were like, this is really good.
Did you get in people in hazmat suits to clean your kitchen after that was over?
It did feel a bit gross, I'm going to be honest.
I believe that's probably right.
I probably won't do it again for a long time.
Right.
But
I like that you're not judgy about the kids wanting to eat meat. I think that's good.
They need to make their own decisions in life. They eat plenty of vegetables. We eat vegetarian most of the time.
Right.
But they are also, as you said, they're actual humans that go out into the world and go and buy themselves a Philly cheesesteak sandwich.
Hamburger,
tacos, they can do.
And again, that's good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So we have a couple minutes left. I want to ask, away from the cookbook, about the world we're living in today. There are more regular people, civilians, who are down in the weeds of food culture today than at any point in my life, right? There are all these television networks and all these shows, all these chefs, all these competitions, all these food influencers on social media. Like the average person today probably knows more about this stuff, or thinks he or she knows more about this stuff than at any point. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for society that so many more people are thinking about this stuff at that level?
I think it's too much.
You think it's too much?
Yeah. I think it's too much because I think a lot of what you see on social media isn't really people cooking food. It looks like they are, but they're just throwing things together, and it's not a tested recipe. I mean, I'm a purist. I mean, I love developing recipes. The art form of writing a recipe is very important to me.
Yep.
And so I still think that there's too much. I love cookbooks. Maybe we leave social media behind and just go back to books.
Are you comfortable with things like the Great British Baking Show, the sort of phenomenon television shows like that?
That's like the only cooking show I actually watch. I don't watch a lot of cooking shows on TV.
You don't?
Well, I don't want to do that in my spare time.
I mean, honestly, you deserve a life away from this stuff, right? Like you can do something.
And that show is baking, and I'm not hugely into baking, so it's quite humorous to see that in the baking world. Yeah.
Well, what will you do after this? So obviously, this is not the last cookbook. You said you could write cookbooks probably from now until the end of time and not go through. What can we expect from you after this?
I haven't even spoken to my publisher about it yet.
Just come on. Now, the publisher probably doesn't watch your show, so it'll just be between the two.
I'm in the early stages of thinking about a next book that's kind of a gift to my children. Should I leave it at that?
No, say more.
Well, my oldest is...
Is it called Pork for Now, but don't get used to it?
Pork sometimes.
Right, yeah.
Pork is a sometimes food. Right. My oldest daughter is in college and she's starting to cook for herself.
Great.
And it's just been interesting to see her approach to cooking, actually. She does use the New York Times. She often will, I don't know if she has the New York Times app, but she'll often call me and say, can you send me the GIF link to this and this and this? And then often she'll ask for certain recipes of mine that I've developed at home. Yeah. She doesn't live at home anymore, obviously she's off. But when she was home for the summer, she would say, oh, I like that Brussels sprouts udon thing that you did. So she'll ask me, and I started talking to her about what attracts you to recipes.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
What'd she say?
And she said something to me very specific. She said, I don't mind spending hours on a recipe as long as it doesn't have too many ingredients.
Ooh.
Because she lives with flatmates, she's on a budget.
Right.
So it was not about, it's not a time thing, it's a having to go out and spend a lot of money on ingredients thing.
Right.
So that got me thinking about doing something more pantry related.
You know, an interesting cookbook might be 4 ingredients or less, and yet the dish is awesome.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and I love working with restrictions, actually. It makes you more creative. And Tender Heart very much was like that. It would be like, it was developed like this, Evan. I would say, I'm going to develop a recipe for my cookbook today. I have sweet potato. What am I going to do with the sweet potato?
Wow.
So it would be digging into the pantry. I mean, I have a good pantry, though.
I mean, please, you have to have a good pantry. Right.
So it's not everyone's pantry, but I have all these, wonderful condiments that I would just go, I can take a vegetable and I can add all this stuff and look how amazing it is.
I love that. Well, I can't wait to see what it is. And it's been so fun to talk to you. I'm excited. I'm going to go home and cook like crazy out of this cookbook.
Potato chip salad for you tonight.
Potato chip salad for me. A double helping. All right. Hetty Lui McKinnon, thank you so much. Congratulations on your success. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We'd love to have you join us in the studio. Visit our website at overheardwithevansmith.org to find invitations to interviews, Q&As with our audience and guests, and an archive of past episodes.
I love taking something that already exists in the world and kind of transforming it into something that speaks to me or to the moment. Hence the potato chip salad.
Funding for Overheard with Evan Smith comes from Hilco Partners, a Texas government affairs consultancy, Claire and Carl Stewart, Christine and Philip Dial, Eller Group, specializing in crisis management, litigation, and public affairs communication, ellergroup.com, Diane Land and Steve Adler, and Carrie and Chris Odo.